Hello students, this is the fourth chapter from history, tribal decus and vision of golden age. So let's start the revision. Here is a basic introduction of tribal group. So in the forest and village of Chota Nagpur in Jharkhand, a man named Birsa began to be believed to have a miraculous power. So he is declaring himself as a savior of people, which was being appointed by the God. So he is considering himself, he is proclaiming himself as the person who is appointed by the God to save the people. Now, as he was having miraculous power, he was healing many of the diseases, and even he could save the people from trouble and free them from slavery of the outsider. So generally the tribal people call the outsider as Dikus. Dikus means the people who came from the outside or the other region into their life or into their regions. So they want to be free from their slavery from the outsider. So who can save them? The Birsa can save them. And even Birsa want to regain his ancestors' respect and the way of living what they were living in the past time. So that was considered by himself as a golden age. So he want that golden age back. Birsa was born in family of Munda, a tribal group that lived in Chota Nagpur. Santhal and Oran tribes were among his followers. Different group of tribes were unhappy with the changes under the British rule. They were of their way of life, livelihood and religion seemed to be danger. The tribes had customs and rituals very different from those laid down by the Brahmins. So here the tribal group, the different group of tribes were very unhappy. Why they are unhappy? Because of the British rule which has changed their lifestyle. Even though they feel that the way of life they were living away and the earning, the livelihood and the religion all seem to be in danger under whom? Under the British rule. So their customs, rituals were completely different from which that was being laid by the Brahmins, because Brahman used to follow the Varna system and even they were following the caste system. So that caste system or Varna system was not being followed by the tribal groups. They were living in brotherhood. They were not having any kind of caste, any kind of Varna. They worship the nature gods, a certain kind of belief they are following up, and living together as a family. So there are no division as upper and lower. There is only a leader who is powerful, and the Sardar, in short, the person who is stronger, is looking after the whole tribal group. Now, how did tribal groups live? So there are a number of ways how these tribal people used to live. So here are the styles like Jhum cultivators. Some are the Jhum cultivators, some are the hunter gatherers, some are herding animals, and some took the settled cultivation. So one by one we can learn it. We will understand that. Some were Jhum cultivators. So by the 19th century, tribal people in the different parts of the country of parts of the India were involved in a variety of activities. So what kind of activities? Like Jhum or shifting cultivation was done on small patches of land, mostly in the forest. So what they were doing, how the Jhum cultivation was being done? They were clearing off the forest region by cutting down the trees. So they are cutting down the tree tops, which allows the sunlight to reach the ground. So after cutting down the tree tops, as they are not able to just took off the roots, so they burned the roots and the ashes after what remains after burning. So these ashes works as fertilizer for the land. Then later on the soil was scratched with the hoe. This is a tool to prepare the land for the cultivation. Once the crop was ready, so they are sowing the seeds, and once the crop was ready they are harvesting it, and they are moving to the another field and left that field fallow for several years. So once they have cultivated in any land by following this procedure, they are not using that same land for many years. Now what is the reason behind that? So it could regain its fertility back. Later on, after many years they came back and just use that land because it regained its fertility back, so they can cultivate over there. So these are the Zoom cultivators who follow this kind of system. So such cultivators, where they are found mainly in the hilly and forested tract of the northeast and as well as central India. Somewhere the hunter gatherers in many regions, like tribal groups, lived in by hunting animals and gathering forest produce. So they do not use the cultivation process what the Zoom cultivators were using up. So how they were collecting food? They were gathering food, roaming around in forest, and even for food they are hunting animals. Khonds were hunters and gatherers living in the forest of Orissa. They used many forest shrubs and herbs for medicinal purposes, and also they are selling it to the local market also. So by this they are earning money also. Many like Baigas of central India, they were recurrent to the work for others. So they were not selling the forest produce, or they are not following what the others are doing. They are always engaged for hunting and gathering. Tribal group often needed to buy and sell in order to be able to get the goods that were not produced within the locality. So mainly they are living in the forest region, so everything is not available over there. So for the same reason, what they have to do, whatever produce they are having in the forest region, like herbs and shrubs what we have read, that is being sold in the market, they are earning the money, and whatever it is not produced in the locality, or they are not getting in the forested region, they are purchasing it from the market. This led to their dependence on the traders and money lenders. So who is providing such goods and as well as money to them? That is the traders and money lender. So they started depending on them. Loans were given to the tribal on the high interest. Now they need money, like to produce anything, to sell anything, or for any kind of purposes they need money. So these money lenders give away them the money as a loan, and that too also in high interest. This meant debt and poverty among the tribals, because they were not having any kind of source to earn anything. Then how they are going to pay the debt which is being taken in the high interest? So they engage in the debt cycle. They are not able to pay the money back to them. Traders and moneylender were thus seen as evil outsider causing misery. So whatever problem they are facing, the misery means the problems what they are facing the life, that was being caused by whom? The moneylenders and traders. So they are always, the tribal people are always counting moneylenders and traders as evil outsider, or they are also known as dikus. Some herded animals. Many tribal groups lived by herding animal, rearing animals, and gathering forest produce. So this is the third lifestyle of the tribal group. So some of the tribal people are living like this. Now they were pastoralists who moved with their herds of cattle or sheep according to this season. Now pastoralists, now they are, if as they are rearing animals, they need fodder, means the grass, for as a food for their animals. So every time in one particular regions they are not going to get the grazing grounds. So as per the seasons they are moving from one place to another, and this path is fixed, and the locality and the place is also fixed from where they move to one place to another. So because of the same, they are also known as pastoralists. Here are few examples like one Gujjars of Punjab hills and Labadis of Andhra Pradesh, Gaddis of Kulu and Bakrawals of the Kashmir. They are rearing animals like cattle and goats. Now some took the settled cultivation. Many tribal group took a settled down instead of moving from one place to another. So they began to use plow and gradually got rights over the land they lived on. So wherever they were living, they got the right on that particular land. They started cultivating on that land and they settled on that particular land. So they were not moving for hunting, gathering, or they were not moving as pastoralist as they are rearing animals, or they are not following the Jhum cultivation. So they choose the settled cultivation life. Here are few example. Tribal groups like Gonds and Santals were seen by the British official as more civilized than the hunter-gatherers or the shifting cultivators. Next we are having how did colonial rule affect the tribal lives? What happened to the tribal chiefs? They lose their authority. Now no longer they are in power. Who came into power? The Britishers came. Now they have to follow the rules and regulation which was being asked and forced by the company or the Britishers. What happened to the shifting cultivators? That also we are going to learn in detail. Then forest laws and their impact, the problem with the trade, the search for work. So all these points we are going to learn. So what happened to the tribal chief? As I said, the lives of the tribal group changed during the British rule. Before the arrival of the British, tribal chiefs enjoyed economic power and had the right to administer and control their territory. So this was the power what the tribal chief was having before the arrival of Britishers. Under the British rule, the functions and power of the tribal chief changed as they were allowed to keep their land titles but were forced to follow laws made by the British officials in India. Already I have explained when I read the topic. Now they were even made to pay tribute to the British and discipline their group. So the laws what was being asked by the British official or forced by the British official they have to follow. Even then they have to pay the tribute to the British and to discipline their group. It means like shifting cultivators cannot follow their system or traditions, and the hunter gatherers cannot gather any food from the forest without the permissions of the Britishers. So there are many things that was being disciplined uh, to the group. The traditional functions of the tribes were also suspended, so they were not allowed to enjoy or to celebrate or to function any kind of traditions what they were following in past before the British arrived. What happened to the shifting cultivators? The British were uncomfortable with the shifting cultivators. Why? Because they were not staying in one particular places. How they are going to collect the revenue if they are not going to shift? Sorry, not going to stay in one particular place. So that was a major problem that was being faced by the Britishers. Settled peasants were easier to control and as well as they can easily administer them. The British wanted regular revenue source for the state and introduced land settlement. They asked all shifting cultivators to settle in one particular place. Land was measured, rights to land were defined, and revenue demand was being fixed. Now, after asking them to settle down in one particular place or land, the lands were measured and there were specific definition of their rights, that what kind of right they would have on the land, and revenue were demanded, and that too also was fixed. Means the fixed flow of revenue could get by the Britishers. Now the British effort to settle Jhum cultivators was not very successful. Settled cultivation was not easy as water was scarce and soil was dry. So everywhere every locality or region soil is not fertile. It depends on the area where this cultivator used to live. And even the major problem what they are facing, that is water, the scarcity of water. Without water the cultivation is not possible. Facing widespread protest, the British allowed shifting cultivation in some part of the forest. So what happened, the shifting cultivator protested them against this laws, that they are not going to settle down in one particular places. And while seeing this protest, the Britishers allowed few area or some part of the region of the forest to the cultivator, so they can cultivate over that land. Now, forest laws and their impact. The life of the tribal group was directly connected to the forest, as they are living in the forest, gathering, hunting, then following shifting cultivations, herding animals. So that most probably this is the life of the tribal people is connected to the forest. So the British extended their control over all forests and declared them as a state property. It means the forest now is in whose control? Under the British control. Reserve forests were for producing timber which British wanted. Now whatever forest what they have reserved, now the timber was being used by the Britishers as they wanted it. For what? During that time they were constructing the railway track, so they need the timber. In reserved forest, people were not allowed to move freely or practice jhum cultivation. Many were forced to move to the other areas in search of work. Labor for cutting trees fell short. Small patches of land were thus given to the tribals in return to providing labor for the forest department. Many tribal groups reacted against the colonial forest law and rose in the open rebellion. So as the forest was reserved, they were not allowed to practice jhum cultivation, or they were not allowed to gather anything, or they cannot hunt over there. This was strictly prohibited by the Britishers. Even though they were not allowed to live there, they cannot move freely over there. And many a time the British forced them to move out of the forest. So because of that, what they are doing, they were finding out the work in the other places. Now as they move out, what happened? British faced the problem again. What was the problem? For cutting down the timber or trees, there were no laborers. So shortage of laborers were faced by the Britishers. As they need the laborers, what they have done, some small patches of land was given to the tribal people. Now on what condition? On one condition, if they will work as a labor for the Britishers, then only they were allowed, or they will get the small patch of land. So this also was considered as an oppressive rule that was being set up by the Britishers. Many tribal groups reacted. They moved against the colonial forest law and rose up with the rebellion. They protested. The problem with the trade. During the 19th century, tribal groups found the traders and moneylenders were coming into forest and offering cash loans to the tribal people and asking them to work for the wages. So they were giving away the cash loans for what? For working as in wages, so they can repay their loan back to the money lender and as well as traders, or whatever they are purchasing from the traders. Indian silk was in demand in European market during 18th century. The Santals of Hazaribagh reared the cocoons. The traders sent in their agent who gave loans to the tribal people and collected the cocoons. Cocoons were exported to the Burdwan or Gaya, where they were sold at 5 times the prices. The middlemen arranged deals between the exporter and silk grower. Tribal earned very little. So the the traders and the money lenders were very smart. They were giving away the loan to the tribal people, cash loans. On behalf of that, they were purchasing the cocoons as the tribal group like Santals of Hazaribagh, they were rearing the cocoons. And silk was very great in demand in the European market in the 18th century. So these money lenders and traders used to purchase the cocoons from them, and mainly in very lower prices. So the menial prices were given to them like 3 to 4 rupees, and they were earning 5 times more than what they are purchasing the cocoon for. Even though there were a mediator who was dealing the deal between the exporter and as well as the silk grower. So he is also earning money. He is purchasing more cheaper, and that is being sold out to the exporter in the higher price, and the exporter is again selling it in more higher prices. So who is facing the more worsened situation, or who is being exploited over here? The Santhal tribal group who is rearing the cocoons. So tribal here were earning very less. A search for a work. Now, as the people were not having any kind of work, the forests were reserved, it was considered as state property, they were not allowed to collect anything from the forest. Now they were forced to work outside. Now they were searching for a work. Tribal people had to go far away from their home in search of work. They were recruited through contractors to work on tea plantation, coal mines on low wages, and prevented from returning home. So they were given very less wages, whatever work they were doing away. They were not allowed to go home back. Contractors were exploiting them very harshly. A closer look. A tribal group rebelled in different parts of the country against the changes in the law, restrictions on their practices, the new taxes they had to pay, and exploitation by the traders and money lenders. So here you can see the rebellion group from where it was being started against the Britishers. For what? For the changes in the laws and the restriction which were being made by the Britishers, and the new taxes what has to be paid by the traders and money lenders. So because of this, many of them rebelled against the company. So here are the list. The Kols rebelled in 1831 to 32. Santals rose in revolt in 1855. The Bastar rebellion in central India in 1910. The Varli revolt in the Maharashtra in 1940. Here about Birsa Munda. Birsa Munda has played a major role in the rebellion. Birsa Munda's childhood was like that of the other tribal children. He heard that the tales of Munda rebellion and saw leaders initiating people to revolt. The Sardars talked of golden age where they would be free from oppression and have ancestral right on the forest land. Birsa was deeply influenced by many of the ideas he came in touch with growing up years. He thought of reforming tribal society, urging people to give up drinking liquor, clean their village, and stop believing in witchcraft and sorcery. A movement began under the leadership of Birsa Munda. This worried the British official. Was the aim of Birsa movement was drive out missionaries, moneylenders, Hindu landlords and government, and set up Munda Raj with Birsa at its head. In 1895, Birsa Munda was arrested. He was released in 1897 and he toured village to gather support. He urged people to destroy Ravana, that is called as Dikus and Europeans, to them they were calling as Ravana, and established a kingdom under his leadership. In 1900, Birsa died of cholera and the movement phased out. So he was a simple child. As the other tribal children were growing, the same way he was also grown up in the tribal group. He heard many tales of rebellion from the elder ones in the tribal group. The Sardar usually talk about the golden age, and they were free from any kind of forceful laws and all. The forest land rights they were having, nobody was forcing them to move out from the regions, nobody was ruling on them. Birsa was deeply influenced by these tales, and he was having many ideas, and he was touched with the stories, and he wanted to set the tribal group free from the oppressive rule of Britishers. So he thought that he can reform the tribal society by urging the people to change their lifestyle, like they were drinking liquor, they were not cleaning up their villages. So Birsa asked them to clean it up, and to stop believing in witchcrafts and sorcery. Birsa Munda also has followed many religions, like he also become the part of Vishnu culture as in Hindu, and he also joined the missionary, the Christians group, to learn and to understand the things. So as one time he is asking their tribal group to just not to follow the thing what is being followed by the other, but here once he has followed the Hindu religion also, and the Christian religion also, but later on he has quitted from that. He wants that golden age back. Birsa led an Birsa movement, and he want to drive out all the missionaries, means the Christians, the moneylenders and the traders, and as well as the Hindu landlords and the government of British. He want to drive off all of them. Then he want to set up his own Raj, that is the Munda Raj, as the Birsa as the head of that tribal group. So because of the same, the British officials were afraid of this same thing. They understood that if it could not be stopped, or if it is not stopped, then they will lose the control of the tribal group what they have already had. For the same, in 1895, the Birsa Munda was being arrested, and he was released after 2 years, that is in 1897. After got released by the Britishers, he toured village to village, gathered the support of the people again to fight against and protest against the Britishers. He urged every people to take out the Ravana, so Ravana, whom they were calling away the Europeans, to drive out them from their own tribal group, and to take the forest area back, and to set up and to establish the kingdom. And who will be the ruler? The Birsa would be the ruler. But in 1900, Birsa died of cholera, and the movement faded out. The rebellion was much famous during that time, but after the death of their leader, the rebellion faded off, or you can say the movement faded off. So here is the end of the chapter 4 revision. Thank you.